I'm Heather, 32 years old. 3 weeks ago, at my father's retirement party, he did something that made me decide to erase myself from this family permanently. Picture this. A glittering country club ballroom, 200 guests in designer suits and cocktail dresses, champagne flowing like water. My father stood on stage, microphone in hand, introducing his family one by one. When he got to me, he smiled that smile I had seen 1,000 times, the one that looked warm to everyone else, but cut like glass. "And this is my daughter, Heather," he said. "No degree, no future, just freeloads off the family." 200 people laughed. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I just smiled, raised my champagne glass, and said, "Cheers. This is the last time any of you will see me." Then I walked out. The room went completely silent. Let me take you back 12 years to understand how we got here. The Evans family of Fairfield, Connecticut. That's how we were known. Upper middle class, respectable. My father, Richard Evans, was CEO of a mid-size logistics company. We had a 6-bedroom colonial on 2 acres, a Mercedes S-Class in the driveway, and a membership at the most exclusive country club in the county. From the outside, we looked perfect. My mother died when I was 8. Cancer, quick and brutal. I barely remember her face without looking at photographs, but I remember her hands, soft, always reaching for mine. 2 years later, my father remarried. Linda came with a son from her previous marriage, Marcus, 3 years older than me. Within months, they weren't just part of our family. They were the family. I became furniture. Not in any dramatic way. No Cinderella-style abuse, just invisibility. Marcus got the praise for his grades. Mine were ignored. Marcus got the new car at 16. I got his hand-me-down. Marcus was the future of the company. I was also here. My father never hit me, never screamed at me. He just looked through me like I was a window he was trying to see past. But there was one person who saw me. My grandmother, Margaret Evans, my father's mother. She called me every Sunday, asked about my classes, my friends, my dreams. She said things like, "You remind me of myself at your age, Heather. Underestimated, but I see you." She left me something when she died, something no one in the family knew about. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The day my future was decided for me, I was 20 years old. Sophomore year at UConn, business major, 3.8 GPA. I had plans, dreams, a scholarship application sitting on my desk for a summer program in London. My father called me home on a Wednesday. "Family meeting," he said. Those 2 words had never meant anything good. I found him in his study. Mahogany desk, leather chair, walls lined with awards. Linda stood beside him, her hand on his shoulder, supportive, united. "Heather," my father began, not looking up from his papers. "We need to make some sacrifices as a family. Marcus has been accepted into the Wharton MBA program. We can't afford both your tuition and his program. So we've decided you'll take a break from school, just for now. Marcus's career will benefit the whole family." Linda nodded, her voice honey-sweet. "A girl doesn't need an MBA to have a good life, Heather. You'll find a nice husband someday." I sat there frozen. Not because I was surprised. I had spent 12 years learning not to be surprised. But because some small, stupid part of me had still hoped. "You promised Mom before she died," I heard myself say. "You said you'd support my education." My father's jaw tightened. "Circumstances change. When the company stabilizes, I'll make it up to you." He never did. What I found out later through a cousin's slip of the tongue was that there was plenty of money. They just chose not to spend it on me. I didn't argue that day. I just nodded. But inside, I made a promise to myself. This was the last time I would let anyone else decide my worth. I moved to Boston with $2,000 in savings and a suitcase of clothes that didn't fit the life I was leaving behind. My first apartment was a 400-square-foot studio above a laundromat. The radiator clanked all night. The walls were thin enough to hear my neighbor's TV. I ate ramen for dinner and day-old bagels from the cafe where I worked mornings. But here's the thing about rock bottom. You can't fall any further. I got a job as an administrative assistant at a small logistics company. Entry-level, minimum wage, plus benefits. The owner, a gruff man named Walter Barnes, saw something in me that my family never had. "You've got a brain, Heather," he told me one day. "Use it." So I did. I stayed late. I learned every system, every process. I took free online courses at night. Supply chain management, operations, business fundamentals. MIT OpenCourseWare became my college. I didn't call home, didn't ask for a single dollar. When my father's secretary sent me a birthday card with a $50 check from the family, I tore it up and threw it away. For years after I left Connecticut, I had saved enough to start my own consulting firm. Meridian Consulting, LLC. Just me, a laptop, and a rented desk in a co-working space. I kept my name off everything public. No LinkedIn profile, no press releases. All business went through the company name and my lawyer. Why the secrecy? Because I knew my family. If they found out I was succeeding, they'd find a way to take credit or tear it down. Some people build empires to prove their worth. I built mine in silence because silence was the only language my family had ever taught me. Grandmother Margaret died 2 years ago. I flew to Connecticut for the funeral, sat in the back pew, watched my father deliver a eulogy about a remarkable woman who dedicated her life to family. The irony was so thick I could taste it. 3 days later, I got a call from a lawyer I had never heard of. Eleanor Smith, from a Boston firm specializing in estate planning. "Miss Evans, I represent your grandmother's separate estate. She established a trust fund in your name 8 years ago with explicit instructions that no other family member be informed of its existence." I nearly dropped my phone. "The trust contains $800,000. She left a letter for you as well. Would you like me to read it?" "My dearest Heather," Eleanor read. "I know what they did to you. I know about the tuition, the promises, all of it. I argued with your father until I had no words left. He wouldn't listen. He never does. This money is yours. No strings, no conditions. Use it to build the life you deserve, the life they tried to take from you. Remember what I always told you. Don't let anyone say you're not worthy. When they finally see your worth, it will be too late for them. I believe in you. I always have. All my love, Grandma Margaret." I used part of that money to expand Meridian Consulting. The rest I kept as insurance for a day I hoped would never come but always knew might. That day came 3 weeks ago. Let me tell you about Meridian Consulting today. 15 employees, $4 million in annual revenue, offices in Back Bay, Boston. The kind of address that makes people take you seriously before you even open your mouth. We specialize in logistics optimization, helping companies streamline their supply chains, reduce costs, improve efficiency. It's not glamorous work, but it's profitable, and I'm good at it. Here's the part that would make you laugh if it weren't so painfully ironic. One of our biggest clients is Evans Logistics, my father's company. They signed a 5-year service contract with us 3 years ago. We handle their route optimization, warehouse management, consulting, and carrier negotiations. The contract is worth about 40% of their annual operational savings. My father had no idea. All communications went through my team. All contracts were signed by my CFO, Daniel Reeves. The few times Richard Evans had praised Meridian Consulting at industry events, he had been praising his own daughter's work. The daughter he told everyone was worthless. 3 weeks ago, I received a formal invitation to his retirement party. Gold embossed lettering. I almost threw it away. Almost. But then I thought about Grandma Margaret, about 12 years of silence, about every promise broken and every door closed in my face. I RSVP'd yes, not because I wanted reconciliation, not because I hoped things had changed. I went because I knew with absolute certainty that my father would do something unforgivable, and when he did, I wanted to be there to say goodbye on my own terms. I just didn't know how right I would be. The Fairfield Country Club hadn't changed in 30 years. Same chandeliers, same pretentious valet service, same crowd of old money and new ambition pretending they belonged together. I wore a black Valentino dress, simple, elegant, expensive. My grandmother's pearl earrings, a Cartier watch, a Hermes Birkin bag. Everything I owned I had bought myself. That mattered to me more than the labels. Linda intercepted me at the entrance. She had aged, but her smile hadn't. Still that perfect mask of warmth that hid something colder underneath. "Heather, you came." Her tone suggested this was a pleasant surprise and a minor inconvenience. Your father wasn't sure you'd have something appropriate to wear. I smiled. How thoughtful of him to worry. Inside, 200 guests mingled beneath crystal light. Marcus swept past with a model-thin blonde on his arm, not even glancing in my direction. I found my seat assignment. Table 14, the far corner near the service entrance. Not the family table, not even close. I wasn't surprised, but I noted it. From my corner table, I watched and listened. My father was holding court near the bar, surrounded by business associates. Then I heard it. Meridian Consulting has been transformative for us, he was saying to a silver-haired man I recognized as a major shipping executive. They're the backbone of our operations now. Whoever runs that company is a genius. The other man nodded. I've been trying to get a meeting with them for months. Very private operation. Do you know who's behind it? My father shrugged. Never met them personally. Everything goes through their legal team and account managers. But honestly, I don't care who they are as long as they keep delivering results. I took a sip of champagne to hide my smile. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel, my CFO. Contract renewal docs from Evans Logistics arrived today. They want another 5 years. Waiting on your decision. I typed back. I'll have an answer by end of week. What my father didn't know was that Meridian's contract with Evans Logistics was coming up for renewal. If we walked away, they'd lose 40% of their operational efficiency overnight. In logistics, that's not just an inconvenience. That's a death sentence. Marcus found me on the terrace, looking out at the golf course. The September air was cool, and the stars were just starting to appear. Well. His voice came from behind me, heavy with contempt. The prodigal daughter. I didn't turn around. Marcus. He stepped beside me. Dad's about to give his speech. Wanted to make sure you weren't planning any dramatic scenes. Why would I do that? Because you've always been jealous. He said it like it was established fact. The way you stormed off after the tuition decision, the way you disappeared to Boston like some wounded animal. You've never gotten over it. Now I turned and looked at my stepbrother in his $5,000 suit, his Rolex, his perfectly styled hair. Is that what you tell yourself? His eyes hardened. I heard you started some kind of company up there, playing businesswoman. He laughed, short and cruel. How long until it fails? 6 months? A year? Then you'll come crawling back, begging Dad for help. I won't. You will. You always do. You're weak, Heather. You always have been. I could have told him then about Meridian, about the contract, about how his precious company's success was built on the work of the sister he dismissed. But I didn't, because some revelations need the right stage. You know what, Marcus? You can believe whatever makes you feel better. I started to walk past him. But I promise you this. After tonight, you're going to wish you had treated me differently. His laugh followed me inside, dismissive, arrogant. He had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The ballroom lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. My father climbed the steps to thunderous applause. The conquering hero of Connecticut logistics, taking his final bow. 40 years in this business, he said, his voice carrying that practiced warmth he had perfected over decades. It's been one hell of a ride. He thanked partners, employees, mentors. He thanked God, thanked luck, took credit for everything. Then came the family segment. I couldn't have done any of this without my incredible wife, Linda. He gestured to her table. 30 years of putting up with my late nights and business trips. You're a saint. And my son Marcus, who will be taking over as CEO come January. Richard beamed. The future of Evans Logistics. I couldn't be prouder. Standing ovation. Marcus rose and waved. The picture of corporate royalty. Then my father's eyes found me and something shifted in his expression. Something mean. And of course, my daughter Heather. The spotlight swung to my table. No degree, no real career, just freeloads off the family. He paused for comedic effect. But hey, at least she showed up tonight. Maybe someday she'll find a rich husband to take care of her. The room erupted in laughter. Real laughter. The kind that comes from people who think they're in on a joke, not realizing they're watching cruelty dressed up as comedy. I sat perfectly still. Didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't look away. I just waited for the laughter to fade. And then I stood up. The room went quiet as I rose. I could feel every eye on me. Some curious, some pitying, some already preparing to witness a breakdown. The unstable daughter finally cracking under her father's harmless joke. I picked up my champagne glass slowly, deliberately. My father's smile faltered just slightly. He hadn't expected me to react. I never did. I was supposed to sit there and take it like I always had. I raised the glass toward him. Congratulations on your retirement, Dad. My voice was clear, steady, loud enough for every microphone in the room to pick up. 40 years in business. Quite an achievement. I paused. You taught me a lot about hard work, about sacrifice, about exactly what kind of loyalty family can expect from you. The silence was absolute. I could hear someone's ice clinking in their glass 3 tables away. So, here's to you. I lifted my champagne higher. Cheers. This is the last time any of you will see me. I set the glass down without drinking. Then I picked up my bag, turned, and walked toward the exit. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, the only sound in that cavernous room. I didn't run, didn't hurry. Just walked, spine straight, head high. Behind me, silence. Complete, total, devastating silence. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered something I couldn't hear. But mostly there was just the echo of my footsteps and 200 people trying to process what they had just witnessed. The daughter who was supposed to be broken had just walked out on her own terms. I pushed through the double doors and stepped into the night. And for the first time in 12 years, I could breathe. I was almost to my car when I heard footsteps behind me. Heather. Heather, stop right there. Linda's voice, shrill and furious. I kept walking. What do you think you're doing? She grabbed my arm, spinning me around. Her face was red, her careful composure cracked. Do you have any idea what you just did? You humiliated your father in front of everyone. I looked at her hand on my arm until she removed it. I humiliated him? I asked quietly. I think you have that backwards. My father appeared behind her, his face a thundercloud. He was aware that 200 guests were probably watching from the windows. I could see him calculating. Get back inside, he said, his voice low and dangerous. Apologize. Now. No. The word hung in the air between us. This isn't a negotiation, Heather. I'm your father. I'm telling you. You're telling me what? I cut him off. Something I had never done in my life. That I should go back in there and let you keep using me as your punchline? That I should smile while you tell 200 people I'm worthless. It was a joke. It was the truth of how you see me. And I'm done pretending otherwise. I opened my car door. My father stepped forward. If you leave now, you're done. Do you understand me? No more family, no more support, nothing. I almost laughed. Dad, you cut me off 12 years ago. You just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. Tonight, I'm saying it for both of us. I slid into the driver's seat. Goodbye. And I drove away. The morning after the party, I woke up in my Boston apartment feeling lighter than I had in years. But I knew it wasn't over. Families like mine don't let go easily. They would try to control the narrative, make me the villain. What they didn't know is that I had something they couldn't spin their way out of. It started with text messages. Not from my father. He was too proud for that. But from cousins, aunts, family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly very concerned about my mental state. Heather, your dad says you're struggling. Do you need help? Susan told me you had some kind of breakdown. We're all worried about you, sweetie. Your father loves you. He just wants what's best. Maybe you should apologize and come home. The narrative was already being written. Poor Heather, unstable, jealous, had some kind of episode at the party. Richard Evans, patient, loving father, doing his best with a troubled daughter. I didn't respond to any of them. Then came a more interesting call. Tuesday afternoon, a Connecticut number I didn't recognize. Miss Evans, this is James Crawford. I'm a partner at Evans Logistics. I'm calling on behalf of Richard. He'd like to discuss mending fences. Between you and me, there's been some concerning chatter about your connection to certain business partners. Someone thought they had seen you at Meridian Consulting's offices once. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. My mind raced. They were getting close. It was time to stop waiting and start acting. While I was fielding concerned texts in Boston, my father was facing a different kind of crisis in Connecticut. His CFO had walked into the quarterly board meeting looking like he had seen a ghost. "We have a problem with Meridian Consulting," the CFO said, sliding a folder across the mahogany table. "Their contract is up for renewal in 6 months. They haven't responded to our extension offer. We've tried 3 times. Their legal team just says under review. Call their executives directly. We've tried that too. Meridian Consulting is extremely private. No one at this company has ever met the actual ownership. Everything has been virtual meetings, legal representatives, account managers." A long silence. "If they walk away from us," the CFO continued, "we lose 40% of our operational efficiency overnight. It would take at least 18 months to find a replacement, and that's optimistic in this market." My father stared at the folder. The timing, the silence, the fact that this was happening right after the party. Something was nagging at him. "Find out who owns that company," he said. "I don't care what it takes. I want a name by end of week." What Richard didn't know was that the name he was looking for was already on his family tree. Thursday evening, Linda called. Her voice was honey and sugar, the performance of a lifetime. "Heather, sweetheart. I've been so worried about you. About the party, your father feels terrible. He didn't mean what he said. He exaggerates when he's anxious. Why don't you come home this weekend? We could have dinner, just the 4 of us, clear the air, start fresh. Does Dad want to apologize?" A slight hesitation. "He wants to move forward. That's what matters, isn't it? So, no apology. Heather, don't be difficult. We're trying to help you." "Help me? Now?" I almost laughed. "Linda, you've spent 22 years making sure I knew I wasn't really part of this family. Now you're calling to help me. Why?" A longer pause. "I think we both know there's more going on here than just family drama," she said, her voice dropping its warmth. "Whatever you're planning, it would be better for everyone if you just came home and talked this through." "No." I hung up before she could respond. They knew something. They just didn't know how much to be afraid of yet. The next morning, I drove to Eleanor Smith's office in downtown Boston. The office was sleek, glass and steel, Boston skyline views, the kind of place where serious business happened. "I've been expecting you," Eleanor said. "I assume this is about Evans Logistics. They're investigating Meridian, trying to find out who owns it." She spread documents across her desk. The Meridian contract with Evans Logistics, every clause, every renewal term, every exit provision. The trust fund documents. The company incorporation papers. "Your contract includes a standard 30-day termination notice," Eleanor said, pointing to the relevant section. "You can end the agreement for any reason. No penalties, no legal exposure. And your grandmother's trust is completely separate from the Evans family estate, legally unimpeachable. Richard has no claim to any of it, even if he tried to contest." She looked at me over her glasses. "Margaret made sure of that." "What did my grandmother say when she set up the trust?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "She said, one day, Heather is going to need leverage, and when that day comes, I want her to have it." She paused. "She also said something else. Tell her not to be cruel about it. Just be honest. Sometimes the truth is punishment enough." I nodded. The truth it was. That afternoon, I sat down with Daniel Reeves, my CFO, in Meridian's conference room. "They want to renew the contract," he said, scrolling through his tablet. 5 more years, actually increase the terms by 12%. They're nervous. They should be. I pulled up the financial projections on the screen. Numbers don't lie. And these numbers told a devastating story. If we walked away, Evans Logistics loses 40% of their operational efficiency within 60 days. In logistics, that's not a dip, that's a free fall. Their clients would start looking elsewhere. Their margins would collapse. "Marcus just took over as CEO," Daniel said quietly. "If this hits on his watch, his reputation is finished before it starts." We sat with that for a moment. It felt surreal, holding so much power over people who had spent decades making me feel powerless. "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. I had been thinking about this for days. About Grandma Margaret's words. About revenge versus truth. About what kind of person I wanted to be. "Draft the termination letter," I said finally. 30-day notice, per the contract terms. No malice, no accusations, just business. Strategic repositioning. That's all they need to know officially. I paused. But I'm also going to write a personal letter to my father. He deserves to know exactly who he's been depending on, and exactly why that's ending. When do you want to send it? Monday. First thing. I spent all of Sunday writing that personal letter. I went through 7 drafts. The first was too angry. The second was too cold. The third was too desperate. The final version was simple, clean, factual. Dear Dad, you said I had no future. You told 200 people I was worthless. I want you to know something. The company you called the backbone of Evans Logistics, Meridian Consulting, is mine. I built it. I own it. For 3 years, the daughter you dismissed has been a cornerstone of your business. I'm ending our contract not as revenge, but as a boundary. Grandma Margaret left me a trust fund you never knew about. She saw what you couldn't, that I was worth investing in. Everything I have I built myself, with her faith and without your support. I don't need you to apologize. I don't need you to understand. I just need you to know that I am not what you said I was. I never was. Don't contact me again. Heather Margaret Evans. I included my middle name deliberately, the name I had added 3 years ago in honor of the only person in my family who had believed in me. I also included a photocopy of the Meridian Incorporation papers, my name as sole owner clearly visible. Monday, 9 a.m. courier confirmation. The package had arrived at Evans Logistics headquarters. 10:15 a.m. missed call from Richard Evans. 10:17 a.m. missed call from Richard Evans. 10:23 a.m. missed call from Marcus Evans. 10:31 a.m. missed call from Linda Evans. 10:45 a.m. missed call from Richard Evans. 11:02 a.m. text from Richard. Call me now. 11:15 a.m. text from Marcus. What the hell is this? Call us. 11:34 a.m. text from Linda. Heather, this is not funny. Pick up your phone. By noon, I had 12 missed calls, 8 text messages, and 2 voicemails I didn't bother listening to. I didn't respond to any of them. I had waited 12 years for this moment. They could wait a few more hours. At 2 p.m., my assistant knocked on my door. Miss Evans, there's a family here. They say they need to see you immediately. So they had driven to Boston. 5 hours of traffic and panic just to confront me in person. Send them to conference room B, I said. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Conference room B had glass walls. I had chosen it deliberately. My 15 employees could see inside, though they couldn't hear. Witnesses, not to humiliate anyone, but to ensure the meeting stayed civil. Richard, Linda, and Marcus stood clustered near the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. A view they had never expected to see from this perspective, from my domain, my territory. My father turned when I entered. His face was gray, older than I had ever seen him look. Heather. His voice cracked on my name. What is this? Hello, Dad. Linda. Marcus. I took a seat at the head of the conference table, calm, professional. I assume you received my letter. Your letter. Marcus stepped forward, jabbing his finger toward me. You can't just. Sit down, Marcus. My voice was quiet but firm. I won't discuss anything with you yelling across the room. He looked at my father, uncertain. Richard nodded sharply. They sat. For a long moment, no one spoke. This is all some kind of misunderstanding, Richard finally said, leaning forward. Meridian Consulting. You can't possibly have built a company like that. I did. I slid a folder across the table. Company registration, tax filings, client list. 3 years ago, your company signed a contract with mine. You praised my work at industry events. You called us transformative. You just didn't know you were praising me. Linda's face had gone pale. But you don't have a degree. No. You made sure of that. I met her eyes steadily. I was a 20-year-old who was told to sacrifice her future. I built something anyway. Silence. My father stared at the documents. Okay. His voice was strained, the mask of corporate composure cracking. I apologize. I apologize about the party. Is that what you want to hear? I'm sorry. Now, can we talk about the contract? You're sorry because you need something from me. That's not an apology. For God's sake, Heather. Marcus slammed his palm on the table. Do you know what happens if you pull this contract? 20% of our workforce gone. This is sick. You've been planning this for years, waiting to destroy us. It's not revenge. It's a business decision. Your company chose to become dependent on mine. That's not my fault. You could have told us, Linda interjected, her voice high and strained. You could have said something. When? I looked at her. When you told me I didn't need education because I'd find a husband. When you spread rumors that I had mental health problems. She had no answer. I turned to my father. You want to know the worst part, Dad? I would have kept the contract going. I wasn't planning any of this. But then you stood in front of 200 people and told them I was worthless, that I had no future. I paused. You chose this, not me. Richard's jaw worked. For just a moment, I thought I saw recognition in his eyes, something like understanding of what he had done. Then it was gone. What do you want? He asked flatly. Nothing you can give me. There must be something. You're not listening. I don't want anything from you. I just want you to know the truth. Fine. Richard's voice went cold. If that's how you want to play this, you walk away from this family. No inheritance, nothing. I almost laughed. Dad, you cut me off at 20 years old. What inheritance? I have connections. Lawyers. I could make things very difficult for you. On what grounds? I leaned forward. Every document is legal. Every contract was signed in good faith. There's nothing here you can sue me for, and we both know it. And before you try, my lawyer, who is also Grandma Margaret's lawyer, has already reviewed every possible angle. You remember Eleanor Smith? Margaret used her specifically because she knew you'd try something like this someday. Linda gasped. Margaret knew about all of this? She left me a trust fund. $800,000, specifically structured so you couldn't touch it. I pulled out a photocopy of the trust document. She knew exactly what kind of family she had raised. That's why she protected me from it. Richard's face went from red to white. She had no right. She had every right. It was her money. I stood. This meeting is over. If you contact me again, calls, texts, showing up at my office, I will release every email, every document, every record of how this family has treated me. All of it is legal, all of it is backed up, and all of it would make a very interesting story for the business press. I opened the door. The receptionist will show you out. I stood in the doorway watching them gather themselves. 3 people who had spent my entire life making me feel small now looking very small themselves. My father rose slowly, like an old man suddenly aware of his age. Linda clutched her handbag like a shield. Marcus stared at me with something new in his eyes. Not contempt anymore, but fear. This isn't over, Marcus said. Yes, it is. I meant every word. I spent 12 years building a life you tried to convince me I couldn't have. I did it without your help, without your approval, without your permission, and I'll continue to do it without any of you in my life. Linda's lower lip trembled. Heather, please. We're family. We share blood, Linda. That's all we share. I held the door open wider. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm setting a boundary. Don't contact me again. Don't mention me to your friends, your colleagues, anyone. Just let me go. Richard stopped in front of me. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Father and daughter, strangers who happened to share a last name. You really hate us that much? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. No, Dad. I don't hate you. That's what you don't understand. I met his eyes steadily. I just don't need you anymore. And that's something you'll have to learn to live with. He had no response to that. They walked out through the lobby, past my employees who carefully pretended not to watch. The glass doors closed behind them. I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and got back to work. 1 week after that confrontation, I received a call from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My Uncle Robert, my father's younger brother. Robert had always been the black sheep of the Evans family, an artist, a dreamer, the one who didn't go into business. Heather, his voice was older, rougher. I heard what happened at the party, at Richard's office. Word travels fast in a small community. He paused. Listen, there's something you should know. Something I should have told you years ago, but I was too much of a coward. I sat down slowly. I'm listening. When your father said the family couldn't afford both your tuition and Marcus's MBA, that was a lie. There was a specific fund your mother set up before she died for your education. Enough to cover a full 4 years at any school in the country. Richard drained it. Used it for Marcus's MBA, then told you there was no money. My heart stopped. Your mother wanted you to have choices, Heather. Richard stole them. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of my desk. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid of Richard. We all were. Robert exhaled. Margaret found out. That's why she set up the trust for you. She couldn't get your mother's money back, but she could make sure Richard didn't take anything else. I thought of Grandma Margaret's letter. I know what they did to you. She knew all along. 2 months after I terminated the Meridian contract, the consequences became public. I wasn't trying to monitor what happened to Evan's logistics. Honestly, I was trying to move on. But in the Connecticut business community, news travels fast, especially bad news. The company announced a 20% workforce reduction. 70 employees laid off right before the holidays. The press release blamed market conditions and strategic restructuring, but everyone knew the real story. Their biggest consulting partner had walked away, and they couldn't recover. Marcus, barely 3 months into his role as CEO, was already being questioned by the board. Richard came out of retirement to help manage the crisis. But the real damage was to their reputation. Word spread, not from me. I kept my mouth shut. But 200 people had watched my father humiliate his daughter at that retirement party, and when those same people heard that the daughter was actually his company's most important business partner, the whisper started. In Connecticut business circles, reputation is everything. And Richard's was crumbling. A former colleague told me that at a recent industry dinner, Richard sat alone. No one wanted to be associated with the man who had publicly disowned the daughter who had secretly been his backbone. I didn't feel triumphant hearing this. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt tired. Grandma Margaret had been right. Sometimes the truth is punishment enough. I didn't have to do anything else. The truth did it all by itself. 6 months later, I sat in a therapist's office in Beacon Hill. Not because I was falling apart, but because I was finally ready to put myself back together. Do you regret what you did? My therapist asked during one of our early sessions. No, I said. And I meant it. I regret that it had to happen. But I don't regret protecting myself. Outside of therapy, my life was good. Better than good. Meridian was thriving. We had replaced the Evans contract with 3 smaller clients, more diversified, more stable. Daniel got a promotion. I hired 4 new employees. We moved to a bigger office with views of the harbor. I reconnected with Uncle Robert. We had dinner once a month. He told me stories about my mother, the real ones, not the sanitized versions my father had fed me. She had been fierce, apparently, stubborn, a fighter. You're just like her, Robert said one evening. She'd be so proud of you. I still kept the photo of Grandma Margaret on my desk. I visited her grave every month, left flowers, told her about my life. I did it, Grandma, I told her one spring morning. I didn't let them define me. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. So here's what I learned. Your worth is not determined by a degree. It's not determined by your family's opinion. It's not determined by who believes in you or who tries to tear you down. Your worth is determined by what you build when no one is watching, by who you become when everyone counts you out, by the life you create with your own 2 hands. My father thought he was teaching me a lesson at that retirement party. He thought he was putting me in my place. What he actually did was set me free. I don't hate my family. That's the part people struggle to understand. Hate takes energy. Hate is a chain. I'd rather spend that energy on work I believe in, on relationships that nourish me, on a life that's truly mine. Boundaries aren't about revenge. They're about protection. They're about saying, this is where my life begins and your damage ends. If you're in a family that makes you feel small, if you have people in your life who see your potential as a threat instead of a gift, if you've ever been the family disappointment, the scapegoat, the invisible one, I see you. I've been you. And I promise you, there is life on the other side of walking away. This is Heather. And I'm finally free.